Vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Next action item is the adoption of the fiscal year 2019 budget. Entertain a motion to adopt the budget as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments regarding the budget? Give a little presentation here.
Just to give a quick overview, then we can open up for more questions. Administration first presented the board budget at the workshop on August 2nd. Came back on, then put it up on August 20th for public display to meet the 30-day requirement. Then on August 30th, met with the board again under question and answers regarding the budget. To summarize the budget, total revenue at $106,666,000. That is down 2.52% versus the actual. It's mainly due with the extra collected taxes in the prior year, and we are on a cash basis. And then total expenditures for the budget, $106,618,825, which is 4.78% higher than last year's actual. For all funds, we're expecting a $47,175 net surplus that you can see in your page 5 of your budget books. As far as operating funds go, total revenue $90,273,400, which is down 2.87% over last year's actual. Total expenditures for operating $87,488,900, which is up 3.28%. Net estimated surplus for the operating funds, $2,774,300, which is 3.17% of expenditures. According to Board Policy 420, we should have at least 3%. Estimated fund balance at the end of the fiscal year, $10.5 million of operating surplus, or 12.1% of expenditures, and our goal is to be at 12%, which, as you can see, is recorded on page 9 of the budget book. With that, open up for any final last questions and recommend adoption.
Any questions for Brad? Just to reiterate, Brad, this is purely operating. The budget, especially on the revenue side, doesn't contain any sale or anything of any capital asset.
That is correct.
So one of the points I brought up, and I think we should revisit, is the capital outlay that's currently in the operations and maintenance fund. It's at $600,000, and then we have a remaining balance in the capital projects fund. Budget amount there, capital outlay is $3 million, which would have a ending fund balance of $681,000 roughly. And one of the things I brought up, I mean, first, how much have we spent in capital projects? I mean, this is already some of the work that's been done, correct?
Right. So out of this, so it's $3 million. So just so the public understands, so with the, by law, we have to adopt our budget by September, but our budgets actually began July 1st. We do our expenditures for our summer work, we do that right away. So our expenditures for our summer work are coming right off this budget that we're still approving. So to answer your question, go to the treasurer's report. So on the treasurer's report, so for capital projects, as of August, we hadn't had any, but we've, working capital projects, 1.25 million, and I know we believe we have like 600 some thousand this month, so we're like 1.8 million already expended in our capital projects.
But isn't there also work that's been done that hasn't
Oh,
been
yes.
yet?
Right.
So what would that bring the total to?
I would think, Rich, we pretty much have all the major projects already done. Just a matter of getting the walkthroughs and all the bills finalized. So from practical purposes, I'd say probably 90% of that funds are already spent.
I think from Fund 60, we spent about $2.3 million so far in capital projects
Spent, but what about committed that just hasn't been
So,
paid out
this year.
yet?
It'll be 3.6
Total,
by the time
between the
everything
two
is
funds.
closed out.
So the point was, we've already allocated that money in the capital projects, and we talked about this at the time. We were spending basically that countdown to zero. I don't know why we would keep in restricted funds $600,000 that's already been, allocated, and then have a budget line in the operations, which isn't restricted cash, of $600,000. And I think if you looked at the answers that were provided, I think there's a lot of support for having this being taken out of capital projects versus O&M. I mean, it reduces the amount of TAWs we would have. It increases the operating surplus that we would have, strengthening the district's financial position. And, the fund, what is it, Fund 60? Yeah, I mean, those are restricted funds, so if something happened, we would have an issue because we couldn't spend it on anything else besides capital projects. So I think, at the time, we made a decision as a board to spend $3.6 million on capital projects. It should all come out of that fund. It's going to be very difficult this year in February to, make decisions on those capital projects, which I brought up because you're taking it from the budget coming up that you don't know. You're going to probably have a change. You could have a change in administration. There's a lot of changes at state. You're not going to know a lot of that stuff that's going to be coming up for the next fiscal year. But again, it just seems to make sense that we did the capital projects that should come from capital projects and not have that restricted cash still sitting out there. So I would make a motion to remove the $600,000 from to amend the budget that was presented and move the $600,000 from the capital outlay under operations and maintenance and increase the $3.6 million the capital outlays under capital projects.
Brad, would we be in compliance with state law then if we adopted that motion?
Yeah, yes. So, state law allows, think about it like this. Say you had a bunch of community members come forward at a public hearing and said, brought up a very valid point, you wouldn't expect the board just to ignore that, right? Well, the same is true for board members. Right up till the adoption of the budget, you can make changes. It can be different from what was posted. That's completely legal.
Member Luchetti's made a motion. Want to say it one more time, Chris?
So we would remove the budgeted amount and capital outlays under the operation and maintenance fund. So there would be no capital outlay under Fund 20, and we would increase from $3 million to $3.6 million the capital projects Fund 60 budget for capital outlays.
There's a motion to amend the budget based on that explanation. Is there a second? This could be bold also.
Is this a second?
No, this is
This is the motion to adopt the budget with that amendment. Correct.
Because we already have a
Yes.
motion, an amended motion.
So it's an amended motion.
All right, very well.
So made by member Lucetti, seconded by member Glenn.
Thank you.
So, Brad, because the capital is restricted, the capitals, is there any reason that we put that 600 that you let speak upon?
Certainly. I mean, if you kind of remember the path we've been down, about a year plus ago, I think there was concern we were spending 60 down too fast. And so in response to that, we certainly just looked to build as much capital into the operating funds, if you will, that we could support based on our budget parameters. And so if we were kind of looking at trying to balance that out, giving us some flexibility down the road, so next year, depending on how tight operations are, we could still have 600,000 in there if we need it. Member Lucetti has a great point, it's restricted funds. So, but we were just trying to balance that between keeping the operating funds, making sure we're hitting over 3% surplus, at the same time pumping in as much capital, slowing the spend down on Fund 60. So trying to meet that fine line balance. I'm personally fine either way. It's really up to the board.
Is there a downside to zeroing out that account, I guess, for next year?
Well, to Chris's point, there's several unknowns that you are staring into an abyss.
I understand.
By moving it around, it gives us the flexibility versus relying on unknown sources.
That's why I said there's something for downside.
Well, the other question I would ask right before, Chris, you have something to add, is an intra-fund loan prohibited from?
Yes, for capital. So you can interfund loans within operating,
Right.
that's fine.
That's the key.
Loans from, you can loan to capital, but I don't believe you can be loaning back
Right.
from capital.
That's one restriction.
Sure.
So
So if we're spending regardless, so.
But if it sits in that fund, the ability to move it even through an intra-fund loan is restricted. So it creates flexibility is what is proposed.
Right.
So my only question would be is, so we run a 3.5% surplus this year. Do I get credit on it for next year if I can't quite come up with 3%?
No.
Oh, okay, well then I really want less than 60 then.
And can you move money from the operations and maintenance fund to capital projects?
Yeah, you certainly can, or you can just make the expenditure from that.
Right. So there's really,
No downside.
That was really my question, if there's a downside, and I'm just
Explain the
it's going to be harder to.
That, if if it gets down from my seat, that's the goal. Is 600,000 is a little more help if we get tight on the 3%. If not, we'll have to find it.
So the
But as a board, we made a decision to spend that 3.6
Well, it's already
million on capital projects, right? So that's what I'm saying, it should come out, I mean, we looked at capital projects, there was 3.6 million in there, the decision was to spend 3.6 million. We don't take 600 and put it in operations and maintenance, we take it from the capital projects.
And then the 3.17 number that you used for the operating surplus for next year, I believe, would that be, that 600,000, would that then increase that to
Well,
3.5?
2.7 million surplus.
Okay, I thought you said 3.17%.
No,
Oh,
that's a
3.17%, I'm sorry.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
So
that-
that's gonna up that number.
Just,
It's gonna be like
about
3.5,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
But again, that's not why this is.
No.
It's just being done to enhance the flexibility and the maneuverability of the funds.
access to that if we can.
Right.
Well, I think Chris's point, that we're talking about percentages and surpluses, but you got an unknown down in Springfield that we've got to keep our eyes on. Well stated, thanks, Chris. Any other questions or comments? So if now we have the amended motion to adopt the budget. If there's not, I'll call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Very good discussion. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Next is the adoption of our tax levy. Talk first, Brad?
okay, you wanna have the motion, or we give us?
I'll do the motion first. I'll entertain a motion to accept the adoption of the 2018 tax levy as presented in your package.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Okay, Brad.
All right, on August 30th, the administration provided with the Board of Education estimated tax levy, or what we call the tax determination per state law. Within that tax levy, we estimate our new property growth at 75 million. This is really to ensure that 100% of all new tax property will be fully taxed. With that, with those numbers, we have our total operating levy is estimated to increase at 4.06%. That includes the new growth, which is below the 5% threshold in the truth and taxation limits, which now, so that with that, we're not required to have a notice or a public hearing on our tax levy. But finally, just to make sure, on average, existing taxpayers will experience a 2.1% increase in their tax. We'd recommend adoption as presented.
Okay, are there any additional questions or comments regarding the tax levy?
So what's being filed is the same as what was in last, what was presented last.
Right.
No changes.
No changes.
Just we're going to rant a little bit about how we got up to real estate tax in our county. Sooner or later, ladies and gentlemen, this math problem is not going to work. So at some point, we've got to change this process, but it's not going to happen tonight. So. All right, we have a motion and a second. If there's no additional comments, call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. The vote is unanimous. The motion passes.
Thank you. The next action item would be the proposed issuance of the district's educational purposes tax anticipation warrants, and that the Board of Education would consider the adoption of a resolution authorizing the issuance and the sale of said warrants. The resolution sets forth the parameters for the issuance of said warrants and sale thereof by designated officials of the district, and summarize pertinent terms of said parameters, including the specific parameters governing the manner of sale, length of maturity, rates of interest, and purchase price for said warrants. The resolution provides for the deposit of the district's taxes for educational fund purposes directly into a designated escrow account to secure said warrants and the execution and delivery of a tax escrow agreement in connection therewith. Aaron, please read the resolution.
Yes, resolution number 2018-19, resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $20 million tax anticipation warrants in anticipation of the collection of taxes levied for the year 2018 by the Board of Education of Lincoln Way Community High School District number 210, Will and Cook Counties, Illinois, for educational purposes, the sale of said warrants to Old Second National Bank, the deposit of said taxes directly into a designated escrow account, and the execution and delivery of a tax escrow agreement in connection therewith.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adopt the resolution as just read.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion regarding this.
Thank you. Based on the estimated cash flows, the district is expecting to be about $18.5 million short for being able to provide its own monthly cash flow, since the district gets 76% of its funds in two main payments, that is June and September. Administration is recommending tax anticipation warrants not to exceed $20 million. At the prior board meeting, the Board of Education asked administration to seek additional or more quotes regarding our tax anticipation warrants. With doing that, administration reached out to 5 other banks, 4 of which declined to provide tax anticipation warrants due to our credit rating, and 1 that did. At the end, we had 2 providers, Old Second Bank and PNC Bank. In the end, Old Second Bank was the lowest, but they redid their quote of 2.75% on a fixed term. It turned out to be $1,760 lower than PNC Bank. Ice Miller District Bond Counsel has prepared all necessary documents included for your signatures and execution. And administration would recommend moving ahead with Old Second Bank for this borrowing. Thank you.
Questions or comments?
I think This is good. I mean, the original rate from Old Stockton was 2.95%. Going out and getting another bid, Brad was able to, actually, when they didn't seem to be willing to reduce that rate, they did reduce the rate down to 2.75%. So the rate is actually higher than PNC Bank, which is 2.65, but PNC Bank would have a $7,500 attorney fee to get everything in line. So Brad did a really good job of getting these quotes and getting the rate actually reduced by about $11,000.
In an increasing rate environment.
That's correct.
Going for a
And I would
mortgage.
just, now our shortfall would be 17.9 million.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. If there are none, I'll call for a vote, please.
The vote is open. Mr. Gannon? Oh, okay, fine.
Oh.
Sorry, I did
It's not
not.
popping up on the computer.
Yeah. The vote is unanimous, the motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Good job, Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, informational items. Report on the Lincoln Way Special Ed District 843 Governing Board meeting. Ron?
I attended that. Much like tonight, we had a budget hearing, and the 5-member districts approved the budget for the governing board, approved it, so we're good through June 30th of next year. That was the most significant thing of the meeting. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Ron regarding 843? Thanks, Ron. FOIA requests.
FOIA requests are included in your backup materials. Entertain any questions that anyone might have.
Scott, there were two requests that didn't have any results. Were they still being reviewed, one for 9-4 and one for
Pull it up
9-6?
for you. No, they've been reviewed by PAC, and we did not violate FOIA by
Right.
holding back.
So it's been fulfilled?
Yes. So, no, it has not been fulfilled. We don't have to.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the FOIA request?
What about the last one? 9.6?
That one we're still waiting on, and some will be released and some will not. So it will be interesting to see what the Element Policy Group does send to PAC for review. Anything to add to that, Dr. Murphy?
Yeah, that was submitted on Tuesday of this week, so we responded to before the memos, or after the memos were issued.
Thank you.
Next, informational item is audit status.
Nothing to report. Everything's been turned over. We're just waiting at this point. Anticipated presentation in October.
Thank you. District 210 advisory.
Yeah, excuse me, the advisory committee met last week for the first time for this school year. I'm happy to announce that we have a new chairperson, Brian Walcott, and a new vice chairperson, Sean Healy. We added 4 new students. We have 2 from Lincoln Way Central, Dylan Leonard and Kylie White, 1 student from East, David Vargas, another student from West, Erica Johnson, and 1 new parent, Janine Corrado. We also discussed and approved the meeting dates for the 2018-2019 school year, and the current topics that we'll be reviewing, hopefully over the next couple of meetings, and researching include study and review of the GPA indexing and weighting of grades, and also we are going to study and review the semester grade totals, meaning should we continue with the 40-40-20 quarter 1, quarter 2 final exam, or open it up to a more modern 80-20 open semester. So that's what we'll be researching, taking a look at, doing comparisons with other schools, things like that.
Very good. Any questions for Beth regarding the advisory committee? Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it. Next, building and grounds report.
Included in the operation and maintenance report is a draft 10-year capital improvement plan. Included in here is 3.9 million of expenditures. We will have a better idea when we come back to the table in October whether or not we will get some additional state funding to pay for some of these capital projects. Also in October, Brad will have all of these numbers fit into the 5cast, and that will be part of the presentation. What I would just invite the board to do between now and the next meeting, take a look at next year's expenditures, email or contact us with any questions, and we will also be providing some backup material as we move through this process. The roofing has been deferred 1 year. Right now, we're working with a potential solar company for energy conservation, and there's a couple options there that we have to continue to discuss and work out before we come back in October. Brad or Rich, would you have anything to add?
Just we'll be ready to how this all fits in the 5cast, ready to discuss that. We'll have this adjusted, ready to go.
And we also plan to have the architects at the meeting for discussion of how and why we would potentially package any of these to go to bid. So there will be an action item on the next meeting to approve the engineering, design, and bid of projects. So that would be discussed at the next meeting.
Any questions regarding building the ground?
Where did these numbers come from, these estimates?
The estimates?
We're looking 10 years out.
Oh, for the roofs and such?
Yeah.
The estimates for the next year are estimates that Rich has gained through working with our engineers. Rich, you can go ahead and talk. This is your spreadsheet.
For next year, with parking lot renovations came from our pavement survey that we did with our architect several years ago. The hardwood upgrades in the building are actually from the alternates that we bid last year. So we know what those costs came in at last year, so that's how we're estimating this one. Traffic surfacing, also from our architects. The conditions have changed slightly at the tracks since they did their survey, so we added a little bit of money to that for some additional patching. Security cameras, we had our current company that we use, Survey Central and East, and give us a budgetary estimate to upgrade.
Was your question a little more out?
Yeah, I was looking more towards the 2027, 2028. I mean, I know we're having a 10-year plan, but we're putting, kind of hard to estimate later.
It is, and we talked about that. Dr. Kingley and Brad and myself talked about that. We're kind of concentrating on the next 3 to 4 years right now, being as accurate as possible, and we know that we have some work to do in the out years.
It'd be safe to say you're just putting place markers, knowing that the useful life of those will expire, and you just want to get a number.
So those numbers aren't hard and fast. That's not what we're budgeting for 10 years from now. It's just a placeholder.
No, and if you look down as we go out further, if you look down in the bottom, there's let's see what we call the line to be determined. We have the 600, 900. As you're 5, 6, 7 years out, there's more money down in the bottom of it to be determined. That if prices do change, that gives some flexibility.
Any other questions? Thanks, Rich. Appreciate it. Next, asset of the month.
Asset of the month is constructive use of time management, model responsibility in your daily life, and make a commitment, follow through. At school, expect students to act responsible and notice and affirm them when they do, set clear and reasonable consequences when they don't. And then in the community, be clear and explicit about job responsibilities for team workers and teach them how to meet those responsibilities.
Thank you. Legislative report.
Nothing to report at this time. We will just wait patiently and see what unfolds here over the next couple of months.
Very diplomatic, thank you.
Yes.
Superintendent's district report.
The only thing I included in the backup materials is the Illinois Assessment Readiness in grades 3 through 8. The only reason this is significant is that they've left Park, but they did not explicitly choose an ACT, SAT. So it appears they're going to leave the high school alone. So we'll just kind of continue to monitor that situation as it goes. But This won't directly impact us, but it was the release this week of what they're going to use. It would be DRC for grades 3 through 8 in the state of Illinois. So we'll continue to monitor that situation, but at this time, no impact to high school.
Questions regarding the superintendent's district report? Number 9,
Madrigals. As we know, we have received correspondence from the Freedom from Religion. So when I receive that correspondence, we meet with the building administrators and we talk about it a little bit. I know there are those that would challenge the request to stay out of the church, and that's completely understandable. My job is to take emotion and personal view out and do what would be best for the district. Now, several years ago, we were put in a situation where the Madrigal program itself was challenged. And I was part of the group, along with Chuck Stark, that reworked the program to take the focus off and for us to continue that program. So my first response was to protect the Madrigal program, take the scrutiny away, protect it in its entirety. In discussing with the Madrigal directors and our music chairs, each school performed 2 to 3 times in churches each year. Taking into account the dinners and other performances, that would be maybe 20 to 30% of their season. The church performances were also 2 to 3 songs. So, taking that into account, they performed concerts, obviously their Madrigal dinners, their main performance. We also had to consider the cost to litigate. This group has the resources to litigate. It could cost in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the question is, should the district move in that direction to potential litigation for potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars for 6 to 9 performances a year? In discussion with the administrative team, I said that maybe it would be our best decision to stay out. Protect the Madrigals, keep it away from scrutiny, and continue to move forward. Now, the board has asked me to revisit the decision. I completely understand, completely makes sense. And we have done that. Included in the packet this evening is a memo from John Izzo. We had conversations with John after the board asked to reconsider. I came back to John and asked for the opinion. So at this time, after working through this and talking with other school districts, there are other school districts who were also approached by this group. Their decision was just, we're going to stay out of the church. I'm not going to name those. I don't want additional scrutiny from those districts, but they don't have the rich tradition of programming that we do. So with that being said, at this time it would be my recommendation that Madrigals are able to perform in church buildings under the parameters that are included in the memo. Most notably, students should not participate in a worship service. So if they go in the evenings at a cantata, a candlelight choir, and they're part of a non-worship service, John believes it would be permissible under the Constitution. Participating during the Mass or worship service brings it into question. Now, there are those attorneys who believe it doesn't and would like to argue the case. I guess from our standpoint, it's which direction do we go? It would be my recommendation we allow them to perform in the Saturday evening cantata, but we do not take part in the worship service. The memo has been shared with the music department chairs. If they would be in agreement, and then, hearing feedback from the board, we would move forward and move in this direction. Now, the scheduling is done by the Madrigal directors. There are Madrigal directors who have already reached out to different churches to say, hey, let's do a Saturday at Lincoln Way West, and everyone from these congregations can come. I've had pastors already reach out to me and say, hey, we understand. We still want to be part of it. We'll help pay for a show if you want to do something at Central or Lincoln Way East or Lincoln Way West. So I think there are solutions to this. My main motivation is, number one, to protect the program, then number two, to protect the district as we move through this. Thoughts from the board?
I think your estimate of litigation expenses is kind of low. I'd probably put it closer to 7 figures than 6 figures, but other than that, everything sounds good.
And I think the other noteworthy thing is that it's clear that students are not required to participate in these. I think that was probably one of the things that stood out to me.
Correct.
Yeah, and I think just because the building is a church, as long as you're not traditionally doing it on a Sunday, I think any other time is fine, but why poke the bear? Why get in a situation that could be, controversial? I think if we stay away from a Sunday morning or afternoon.
Well, that was just my question. As far as coinciding with a religious worship service, they can go in before Mass, after Mass? Just not during the middle.
During the worship
Mass
service.
or service, I'm sorry.
During the worship service, correct.
Just because the building happens to be a church doesn't mean.
Yeah, correct.
So that still is the acoustics and the experience and all the stuff that we talked about. It's just not in the middle of the service.
Right, we wouldn't want to damage anybody. It's fine. Okay.
Does it have to be an action item?
No, no. It's not, this would not be considered a policy. If the board wanted to make it a policy, then we would move in that direction. But right now, it would be considered an administrative procedure.
Just as long as we're clear, we're going to follow all the guidelines. Everyone's comfortable following all the guidelines listed here. As long as you follow the 5 guidelines, I think I'm comfortable with this.
This has been shared with the leadership, both Music and Madrigal.
Leadership of the department chairs, yes. I have not met with the Madrigal directors yet. I wanted to talk to the board first.
But did you get any response from the department chairs?
They were in complete agreement with this.
Because I know there was a sense of urgency, we're in September,
Yep.
schedules are getting created. So that was part of what we were trying to solve, was to not have the current class of Madrigals.
Miss out on opportunities. Correct.
My only thought on this, and as I said it here, is clean up the language. That it should not coincide with any religious worship service. The performance shouldn't be during. Just because coincide, when I read that, and you cleared it up for me, but I don't know if anybody else had the question, when you were going through this with the department chairs, if there was any question with that language.
So number 4, correct?
Yeah, just to clean that up, just so there's no confusion as to what coincide entails.
Before, after, yes. Got it.
Yeah, just so.
Yep.
Separate from.
Should not occur during any religious worship service.
Yeah.
That's it.
I would also have like a check on here where there's directors and there's the musical chair that, the director of Metro is bringing the song selected so that they include both non-religious. Yeah. So
Yeah,
make
we'll
sure
be-
we have enough Santa songs in there.
Yeah, we'll be checking everything for anything.
Given the sensitivity, I don't know, you mentioned the board might want to consider making this a policy, so we have it. I don't know if it's necessary, but I want to be sure it's.
I would, I guess if we start to get into programming, then you get into athletics, and I think the discussion and the direction is healthy.
Sure.
But I don't know that the board would want to get in that.
I would say that we showed our governance by encouraging the senior administrator to evaluate
Fair enough,
for
fair
different
enough.
options.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
Well, then
Yes.
I just for, maybe you could report back to us once you've got the Madrigals.
Once we get the scheduling done, and
I
yes.
also want to hear also, just the feedback, because we're in a little bit of a challenge here.
Yeah.
Especially if there's any feedback from this outside.
Yep.
That is
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for all that update. Again, thanks everybody for your feedback. Other district business, is there anything any members would like to bring up this time? I know he's here tonight, I don't see where he is, but I want to give a little bit of an accolade to Steve and Lake Central Administration. My phone blew up this weekend, and it was for all the right reasons. They handed out signs for their AP scholars and everything else that was going on there. So I applaud you for your effort there. That was great. I looked down and I'm like, oh, there's 3 texts, there's 4 Facebook messages. What happened? And it was all smiles. And so thank you. And everybody, so then I had the opportunity to run into or spoke to at a later date about that, where they're just bursting with pride, not only for their student, but for the school. So congratulations. That was a big one.
Also for Dr. Murphy or Cheryl, or I don't know if Amy does some of it, but it was nice to hear one of our students tonight say about email addresses and utilizing those. And a lot of times we sit up here and we don't really know if these things are going to work or if it's a good idea or what it is, but it's just nice to hear good positive feedback that it's being utilized. So thanks for implementing that and bringing that to us. It's nice to hear.
Anything else?
One other thing, it's our second year with Brad, and it's our third year with Kelly, and I can't emphasize the importance of their leadership in the budgeting process, and in terms of how far we've come in a very short time. So I just appreciate their efforts. I appreciate them working with the different departments within the school to set those parameters ahead of time and to truly do that itemized budget that we talked about 3+ years ago. So thank you for the efforts, and it continues to improve.
Congratulations. All right. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session. Closed session will include the following reasons: collective negotiating, establish sale or lease price of real estate, litigation, meetings between internal and external auditors, audit committees, finance committees, and their equivalents. I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion is second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? There will be no action. We anticipate no action.